All right, so today's webinar is our monthly new partner introduction, sales and solutions, whatever you want to call it. This is a presentation we put together for all of the new partners or new employees at our existing partners because it's something we ran into a lot when we've gone out and visited customers, done trade shows, and we get a lot of people coming by saying, hey, I didn't know you guys made those. So with somewhere around 300 different SKUs out there, there's a lot of products that maybe you aren't familiar with that we offer. So that's what we're doing today. We're doing sort of a high-level overview on some of our most popular products, explaining what we've got, maybe hitting on one or two cool features or applications, and then moving on. We're going to be doing this pretty quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on any particular slides. So if you see something you'd like to know more about, get a pen ready, write down what it is, and then reach out to your salesperson, Jacob, Sandra, Ivan, and let them know, and they can get you more detailed information, or alternately, they can set up a dedicated one-on-one training or something along those lines. If you do have questions as we go through today, I will try to answer them. You'll want to send them in using the Q&A box. Do not use chat, do not raise your hand. The question and answer box is what you want to use here on Zoom to send those to me. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start with just a brief couple slides here talking about who we are, what we do. Again, hoping that at least most of you out there are new to Zycel. So what we do here at Zycel is we make computer networking equipment. We've been doing it since 1989 under the Zycel brand. We currently service 150 different global markets, and we've shipped a little over 100 million devices. Here in North America, we divide our products up into three main categories. Products that are aimed for telco and service providers, you know, your Verizons, your CenturyLinks, etc. Business connectivity products, which is what we're focusing on today. These are products designed for the channel and sold through the channel. And then our consumer products, the connected home. So we do have a few of these. We don't offer them all in North America, but we offer a fair selection of these. These are primarily sold online through Amazon or retail, so we don't spend a lot of time talking about them, and we don't really push them through the channel here in North America. So the company itself, we have a large R&D facility. We aren't simply a brander where we take a product from an OEM, put it in our housing, and ship it out. We've got a little over 500 dedicated software and hardware engineers. We have a little over 150 people in tech support globally. The U.S. tech support is done in-house here in Anaheim, California, on our campus, so it's all Zycel employees. So when you call in for support, we're not sending you to a third party, we're not sending you overseas. You are calling in and talking to somebody here at our offices. Our main R&D facility is in Hsinchu, Taiwan, but we do have a small R&D facility in the Bay Area and another one in Germany. So when we look at our channel products, the main categories we have are our security appliances, wireless LAN, switching, hospitality gateways, and various different ways of doing network management. So we'll get started talking about security. So security includes our VPN series, our MSG series, our USG series, and our ATP series. Rather than delve in depth into each one of these, we'll just provide some high-level overview of some of the features that are shared by pretty much all of the products in this group. So we have what we call four-tier availability. We have dual firmware support. So basically, when you're upgrading the firmware, if something goes wrong during that firmware upgrade, instead of bricking your device, we simply fall back to the previous working firmware. Same goes with our configuration. Most of our products here support multi-WAN, so you have WAN resiliency, either failover or load balancing. We have device high availability, so if one device, your one gateway fails for some reason, a second device can take over, and we offer VPN high availability. So when it comes to our unified threat management services, rather than trying to do this in-house, we've instead decided to partner with some of the bigger names out there in the respective fields and have their signatures and use their signatures and their expertise to keep on top of things. So for antivirus, we're using Bitdefender. For anti-spam and content filtering, we've partnered with Siren. For intrusion detection and prevention, we're working with Trend Micro. And for our app intelligence, we're using Trend Micro. So one of those cool features that we do have that I just mentioned was the application awareness. So app intelligence. So what that does for us is it allows us, or allows you, to be able to create firewall rules, policy rules, not based on IP addresses and port ranges and things like that, but simply based on the actual application itself. So you can go in and create your firewall rule. You can go in and just choose, hey, I want to control Facebook Messenger, or I want to control BitTorrent. So it gives you the ability in there to be able to create your rules just by using a drop-down menu and choosing individual applications or certain features within those applications. So I do want to draw your attention here to our myzicel.com website. If you're selling our security appliances, this is where you want to go to be able to keep an eye on what's going on with all the devices you've deployed out in the field. So you can log in, you can see every one of your customers' devices, find out what security services that they are currently active, which ones are set to expire, to let you know so you can keep on top of that and be able to reach out to your customer and sell them licenses when they start to expire. Okay, we'll talk briefly about the VPN Series. So the VPN Series is our line of security appliances that does not offer UTM functionality. Its focus is on high-speed VPN throughput, so ideal for remote sites where you're trying to connect multiple sites together to a central office. You might want to use these to do that for you. So some of the same features we've talked about before, VPN high availability, multi-WAN, load balancing. We have the ability to trunk multiple VPNs together and do load balancing across them. Most of these devices have a built-in wireless LAN controller, so you can do wireless LAN management of our NWA 5000 series and higher access points. So they support a couple different VPN technologies. We've got SSL VPN, so that's what you would use to connect, say, a laptop. A remote worker wanting to get into your office, you would use that to do that. So it's a lightweight way using SSL encryption. We offer IPsec VPN encryption for doing point-to-point tunnels between different locations. And for mobile devices like phones and tablets, we offer L2TP over IPsec VPN. So another sort of cool thing we do with both Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure is offer what we call virtual private cloud. Basically, this is a special type of VPN that integrates in with the cloud server, making those cloud-hosted servers, applications, appear to be local applications for your client devices. So if you go through, you will see us there on the officially listed Amazon support. So I'm not going to spend too much time going through each of the individual products. When it comes to most products, feature set's pretty much the same. The differences you're looking at as you jump from product to product tends to be how many ports they have and what type of ports, what sort of throughput they can support, both on the SPI firewall and on the VPN tunnel, and whether they have the AP controller. So as you can see, once you get up to the 50 series and higher, everything will have the AP controller built in. Everything will have multiple WAN ports. So the USG series, this is our old school way of doing things here. So the USG series is our UTM solution, or traditional UTM solution, I guess I should call it. So again, same things we were talking about before, as far as multiple WANs, built-in wireless LAN controller. These get your application intelligence to be able to create those firewall rules based on individual application. We've got some wizards in there making it easy for you to set up and configure your WAN interface, your VPN tunnels. And our content filtering has the ability to filter both traditional HTTP websites, but also encrypted SSL websites as well. Device high availability, link aggregation, both standard high availability and our high availability pro, and the ability to do hotspot management to be able to provide that captive portal guest user experience. So again, same thing as the VPN. The primary differences as you go through the different models in the line are the number and types of ports they have and the throughput you can expect to achieve, whether we're talking about firewall, UTM, or VPN throughput. And then last here, well, semi-last, I think we've got one other one here, ATP, Advanced Threat Protection. This is our newest product category. So these are UTM firewall gateways that do UTM different than the traditional method of doing things. So, your traditional USG type UTM relies on signatures. These signatures are provided, periodically from Trend Micro, Bitdefender, etc., and say, here's different types of traffic. This traffic's good, this type of traffic is bad, and let you block things. But any sorts of new traffic, zero-day exploits, new applications that are new on the market, there's no signatures for those. So what do you do with those? Generally, you just let them through. So with the ATP type firewall, instead, we take these unknown types of traffic, we capture them, and we send them up to the cloud, where we use artificial intelligence and simulations to figure out what this traffic is. Is this traffic a threat? Are they including payloads that are nasty? Or is it just something new that should be let through? So as you see here, as the traffic comes in, we see something we don't know. We can choose to block that traffic. It's up to you whether you want to block that unknown traffic or not. But we'll take that, send that up to the cloud, figure out what's going on, create our own updated signatures, and automatically push those out onto the network. So that traffic that we determine is bad gets blocked, traffic that we know is good gets greenlit. So other ATP users, when they encounter these new types of traffic, they'll know what they are. So basically, as more and more people deploy the ATP, more and different types of behaviors, packets, applications will be recognized, sent up to the cloud, and classified. So you've always got the most up-to-date cloud-based filters available and signatures for those types of applications and threats. Skipping through these slides here, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about them. So again, when we're looking at the different models of ATP, the primary difference is the number and type of ports and the throughput that they can support. So ATP services licenses are done on an annual license. We sell what's called a gold security pack, which gets you the sandboxing, that cloud-based artificial intelligence, web security, application security, malware blocker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are sold as an annual license, and every ATP you buy includes 1 year out of the box. So you can get to the question, what should I buy? Should I buy the ATP or should I buy the USG? So the ATP gives us that cloud artificial intelligence and sandboxing. The USG does not offer that. USG does not offer botnet filtering or zero-day IP URL reputation. The ATP offers us better performance, sometimes up to 2.5 times the performance of the equivalent USG as far as throughput goes. We get more flexibility when it comes to SSL VPN licenses. You only get a set number on the ATP, whereas the USG, you can buy additional licenses. The USG, though, is going to give you that hotspot management, Facebook Wi-Fi, and the ability to upgrade multiple devices at a time, something you cannot do with the ATP. In general, though, for most people out there, ATP is probably the way to go. The biggest challenge you're going to run into is just that the ATP does have a little bit of a different interface. So there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve as you jump from the USG devices that you might be used to the ATPs. We also offer a piece of software out there called SecuReporter, which makes it really easy to keep an eye on what's going on all of your customers' deployed devices and provide detailed graphical reports that you can use to go back to your customer to justify managed services that you're providing to them, to help justify and show them what those UTM licenses have protected their networks from when it's time to renew their licenses. It's a great little tool to use. So you can see here, it'll show you, what kind of threat, who was targeted, when it was, who was the attacker, what geographic location did the attack come from. So that's it for the main batch of security products. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about Nebula. So Nebula is actually these days 2 different products. Nebula for the longest time has been our Nebula Control Center. So centralized cloud management for gateways, switches, and access points. Nebula is also being used, though, as part of our Nebula Orchestrator. This is our SD-WAN functionality. So when you log into Nebula now, you will be prompted which do you want to go to, our Nebula Control Center or Nebula Orchestrator. And we'll start by talking about Nebula Orchestrator, since we're talking about security appliances. So we have the ability to do SD-WAN now as a VPN license upgrade on the VPN series of our firewall products. So SD-WAN is a special way of doing VPN tunnels on a site-to-site VPN that gets you fantastic throughput performance and resiliency of your data. It can create huge performance boost as far as data throughput, but where it probably mostly shines and where you're most seeing people using this is for those providing VoIP communication services between sites. So SD-WAN is primarily used as a replacement for expensive MPLS. So instead of having a dedicated MPLS with very limited bandwidth, you can use SD-WAN to provide high speed over the internet that's just as secure and just as fast as the MPLS. So Nebula Orchestrator gets you zero-touch provisioning. We'll take care of everything in the cloud that needs to be done to create those VPNs between your different sites that would be connected through a dedicated connection otherwise. We offer dynamic path selection, so we're monitoring those paths in real time and being able to switch between multiple paths to ensure the highest quality speed. We offer what's called WAN optimization. It overrides some of the default behaviors of TCP/IP to keep speeds up. When you have it the VPN in SD-WAN mode, we do offer content filtering and application intelligence and the ability to create a dynamic mesh VPN. So now on to the traditional Nebula, which if you've been a reseller for a while, or even if you're new, you've probably heard a lot more about the Nebula Control Center. So the idea behind Nebula Control Center is to make it easy for you to manage all of your customers and all of their networks, and to simplify in general, even if you're just doing a one-time install, to simplify what's required to do that installation to speed things up so it takes less effort, less time on your part. So setting up with Nebula is really easy. You plug in the device that needs to be set up, make sure it has power and an Ethernet connection. Pull out your phone, use the app, scan in the QR code that's either on the bottom of the device or on the outside of the box, and assign it to your customer. And from that point on, the Nebula device will reach out to the cloud, update its firmware, and download the configuration for that customer. And then anything else you need to do, you just do through your web browser. Anywhere you are, you don't have to be on the customer premise, and you can configure everything through the cloud as well as do monitoring and stuff like that. So you can get ahead of yourself if you want, and you can set up without doing any unboxing. If you've got equipment coming from distribution, get sent to your office, and then you ship it out to your customer. You don't have to open those boxes. You just scan in the QR code on the outside of the box, assign it to your customer, and then pass it on to shipping to send to your customer location. Basic settings are already there for you. Anything else you need to do, you just do through the web browser. If you're using Nebula Pro Pack, we've got a number of tools that let you clone existing or previous sites that you've set up. But basically, once the device gets plugged in, it'll automatically download it, updated firmware, and it's configured for you. There's no cloud keys, there's no local controllers, there's no virtual machines. Everything is done through a web browser through the Nebula Cloud. So anywhere you've got access to the internet and a web browser, you've got access to all of your customers' networks. And we've got a dedicated mobile app. As I mentioned before, you can use that mobile app to scan in QR codes and assign the devices to customers. If you're out in the field doing a hardware install, you can take photos of the hardware as you install it, so you've got a point of reference if you have to go on site again to do some sort of maintenance. And it gives you a snapshot of what's going on in your customer networks. It can give you push notifications when devices go offline, and gives you some basic wireless LAN configuration tools as well. So, Nebula was designed for MSPs, so all of your customers and all of their sites makes it really easy to jump between customers, jump between sites, and keep an eye on what's going on. So this is our MSP view here. You see it gives you a list of all of your customers, whether they're using the free or the paid version of Nebula, status of those licenses, how many sites they have, and the status of all the devices. Once you choose your customer, it'll then give you a similar view showing you all the sites that that customer has, assuming they have more than one. And we give you the ability to represent those sites on a Google map to give you a visual representation of where each individual site may be. And then once you drill down into the site, this is our old Dashboard, we've actually got a new dashboard we just rolled out last month. So this slide's a little bit out of date, but the main core stuff is there. Make it really easy for you up the top using drop-down menus to jump between sites or customers and giving you a snapshot of what's going on in that network, which applications are using your bandwidth, which users are using your bandwidth, your PoE budget versus your PoE utilization, how many wireless clients you've got, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're looking at products, we have our dedicated Nebula products, but you'll also see a number of switches and access points being marketed as Nebula Flex. So Nebula Flex are products that can be used in the traditional standalone way, or they can be managed in the cloud, your choice, and you can choose to switch modes anytime you want. Switching modes is real simple. You don't have to do anything with the device itself. You simply scan in that QR code, assign it to a customer, and it'll automatically reboot in Nebula Managed mode. And if at some point you decide to pull it off of Nebula Management, use it standalone someplace else, same thing, just remove it from Nebula, and it'll automatically reboot back into standalone mode. On the AP side of things, we also have Nebula Flex Pro, and I need to update this slide. This is wrong. Ignore where it says 3 years. All of our Nebula Flex Pro products include 1 year of Pro Pack, and they're the same as the regular Nebula Flex. You can switch between standalone or cloud mode. The other thing they offer with the Pro is the ability to be controller managed. So with Nebula, the core Nebula functionality is free. So with the free version of Nebula, you get an unlimited number of devices that you can manage, an unlimited number of customers, and an unlimited number of sites. So there's no limitation there. All of the core configuration and functionality on your hardware is available to be managed through the free version of Nebula. Built-in captive portal hotspot functionality is there for you, SNMP management, et cetera, et cetera. If you go up to our Pro Pack, so that's our paid license, it's available either as an annual license or as a perpetual license. So if you know you want that Pro Pack functionality, but you don't want to have to buy licenses and renew them every year, you can buy a perpetual license, which is locked down to the individual customer, and basically it's a seat license. You buy licenses for X number of APs, X number of switches, X number of gateways, and you're good to go. So that also means if you upgrade hardware down the road, such as move from 11AC to Wi-Fi 6, you don't have to renew those licenses. The licenses stay with that customer. So upgrading to Professional Pack unlocks a lot of functionality, especially if you're an MSP. It gets you a year's worth of log information. It gets you an audit log that tracks every configuration change made and by who and stores that in the cloud. Automatic push notifications and email alerts. A lot more analysis tools, Wi-Fi health reports, security reports, et cetera, are all available through the Pro Pack. So Pro Pack is by no means required, but it does unlock some extra stuff for you. From a price perspective, just to give you an idea, 1 year for an access point is $35 versus somewhere around $150 to $200 for a Cisco Meraki cloud license. And unlike Meraki, if your Pro Pack license expires, we don't lock you out. It simply falls back to the free version of Nebula. So you lose those reports and those logs, but the core functionality is there. You still have full access to your hardware. And then on our security gateways, we have the UTM licenses as a separate license, which is independent of the Nebula Control Center license. So we'll talk briefly here about our Wi-Fi products. So when you're looking at our Wi-Fi products, we offer different types of management. We have the Nebula management, Nebula Pro management, which gets you the Wi-Fi health reports, standalone management, go into the IP address, manage the device itself, and APs that can be managed via controller. So one of the cool things some of our APs offer is smart antenna technology. So one thing that people aren't really aware of is one of the key problems that people run into when it comes to deploying Wi-Fi has to do with something we call co-channel interference. So when you're dealing with Wi-Fi, you're using radio waves. Each device has to take turns using that Wi-Fi. You cannot have multiple devices transmitting at the same time, with the exception of MU-MIMO, which we're going to talk about today. But traditionally, that's how it is. So you've only got a limited number of channels available. You're sharing those channels with all your other wireless devices, such as mice, keyboards, Bluetooth, and with any neighbors you have. Co-channel interference can reach you up to 1,000 feet away. So your neighbors, the house next door, can be problems, but if you're in an office building or an apartment building, you're going to be experiencing probably a lot of overlap with your neighbors in channel usage, so you're all having to share that airtime. Otherwise, packets get dropped and you run into issues. So the key solution to dealing with this is to go with smart antenna technology. The traditional way you dealt with this is you'd spend a lot of time carefully planning, laying out where each of your access points goes, trying to choose which channel to make sure none of you aren't using the same channels as your neighbors. Although due to the limited number of channels available, it's easier said than done. So then what you would do is you would lower the power to try to reduce the reach of each individual AP to keep them from overlapping with each other, which is great. It helps reduce co-channel interference, but it also lowers your signal-to-noise floor. So instead of having low performance because of co-channel interference, now you've got low performance due to poor signal-to-noise ratio. So smart antenna solves that for you. Smart antenna allows you to increase capacity, so it allows you to have more users on the same AP. It increases the coverage area of the access point for the same output power. It reduces interference between access points and even between non-access points, such as microwaves and industrial equipment, and reduces the power needed to operate. So traditionally, your access points, your traditional ceiling mount access point basically makes a big circle area of coverage. Your point-to-point Wi-Fi connection uses a directional antenna to focus the beam. What smart antenna does is each of our access points, instead of having one dedicated beam or antenna pattern, has the ability to use hundreds of different antenna patterns. So what we do is we scan the environment, we figure out where the client is, we also figure out where other sources of interference might be coming from, and we tailor choose the antenna pattern for that client, which focuses the energy on that client to increase range and the signal-to-noise ratio, while also allowing us to bypass other areas where interference might be coming from and basically not listen to them. So because of this, it makes a huge difference in performance on access points where there's a lot of users and on areas where you have a lot of interference from other wireless devices. This works regardless of the client. There's no special technology on the client. For instance, a lot of the new features in Wi-Fi 6 only work if the client device also supports those optional Wi-Fi 6 features. This doesn't matter what your client is. And unlike some of the other stuff out there like beamforming, it works even with highly mobile clients and real-time switching the antenna pattern as the client itself moves around. So a few years back, there was a research group at the University of Brescia, part of their networking group. They saw the claims that us and Ruckus make in regards to smart antenna. So they went out there and they bought a couple smart antenna APs, bought some non-smart antenna APs from HP and Cisco, and put them through their paces and saw what happened. So we've got a link there on the screen. That'll take you to the full white paper and report that they did. But the key takeaways, as far as we're concerned, is that smart antenna made a huge difference, and our algorithm, which looks at co-channel interference and tries to reduce that, outperformed Ruckus's smart antennas algorithm, allowing us in real-world environments to shine compared to everybody else that was in part of that test. So, talking now, moving away from smart antenna and just access points in general, we want to talk about hardware. So if you grab one of our access points and you hold one of our competitors, whether it's the inexpensive Ubiquiti or a much more expensive Ruckus, you're going to feel that our access point weighs a lot more. So why is that? A big part of that has to do with our design philosophy. So our access points all come with a lifetime warranty. So what causes a solid-state piece of equipment like this to fail over time? One of them is capacitor failure. Capacitors are these little tubes filled with salt water. So we don't use those in our access points. We use solid-state capacitors only. The other major cause of failure is heat fatigue, right? You've got all these components generating heat, spreading them out in the device, and oftentimes, such as Ubiquiti, there's no vent holes for the heat to escape. So over time, that can cause chips to fail. It can cause solder joints to fail. So what you'll see in our devices is we've got a large heat sink pressed up against the PCBA designed to draw the heat off the board off those chips, off those components that might fail. And then we generally have a lot of venting to then vent that heat out of the back of the device itself, reducing that for you. So that's how we get to the point to be able to offer lifetime warranty. The other thing we focused on here is performance on the Wi-Fi. So one thing you note when you look at our board versus one of our competitors' boards is we've got a lot more RF shielding on the board itself. So this is done to give us just that much better isolation from any EMI, to give us just that much better signal-to-noise ratio. The other thing that you'll notice is if you open up a Ruckus or a Ubiquiti or whoever, is they mount the antennas directly onto the PCBA itself. We do not do that. We move the antennas to their own dedicated shielded board that's separate from the PCBA. This gets us a little bit more isolation, a little bit more separation dealing with signal-to-noise ratio. It also helps double as a heat sink to pull heat off the board and distribute it away. So the extra shielding, moving the antennas off the PCBA, gives us an extra 2 to 3 dB difference when it comes to signal-to-noise ratio. So that's the difference between a slow connection that's unusable and a slow connection that's actually usable out in the real world. So when looking at our models, the 1100 series and 1300 series, these access points are our low-end models designed to compete with Ubiquiti. Similar price to Ubiquiti, but with that same heavy-duty engineering that we talked about in the previous slide, and with our lifetime warranty versus their 1-year warranty. So big difference between them. These can be cloud managed. We have our dedicated NAP series access points. These all include 3 years of our Nebula Pro Pack out of the box. And then we've got our 5,000 and higher series access points. These are all Nebula Flex Pro, with one exception there. So they offer 1 year of Pro Pack that can be managed with our controllers. So it's a lot of models. So we've got this. I expect you to memorize it. There will be quizzes on it. This is showing the different features, different functionality of all the different access points. Reach out to your salesperson. They can provide you a copy of this. So if you don't want to do cloud management and you also don't want to manage each device individually, our VPN Series, USG Series, and ATP Series have built-in wireless LAN controllers that will manage any of our 5000 series and higher access points. We also still have dedicated NXC controllers that just do wireless LAN management. So that's it for Wi-Fi. We are moving on here now to switches. So we've got a lot of switches, way too many switches to go over today. So I'm going to focus here on giving you sort of a cheat sheet. When you're looking at the price list, you're looking at what distribution's got, looking at the model number will tell you a lot about the switch. So we'll start by talking about the letters at the beginning of the switch model. If you see ES, it tells you it's a fast Ethernet switch. We've still got a few of those. If you see GS, it tells you that all of the ports on the switch are at least 1 gig. If you see XS, all ports on the switch, is that right? Yeah, it used to be right, not so much. So XS tells you that you've got multi-gig ports on there, at least some of the ports on there. XGS tells you that most of the switches are going to be 1 gig, but you do have 10 gig uplink ports. And then if you see MGS, it tells you it's a metro gateway switch. So then if you look at the end of the model name, you will see either no letters, which tells you there's no PoE. You will see a P telling you it's the old 802.3 AF PoE, or HP, 802.3 AT PoE. And I think we're now also added BP, is that right? We still might be doing HP for the BT stuff. And then F tells you it's a fiber switch. All the ports are fiber only. So when it comes to PoE, we offer what we call consumption mode. We can intelligently monitor the PoE draw of each individual device. And then instead of allocating PoE based on the 802.3 classification, we can do it based on just what's realistically required for the device itself. So by doing that, you can put a lot more devices onto the same PoE switch. So basically put more devices per your PoE budget. So in this case here, our WAC 6502D-S If you just followed the 802.3 standard, it would classify itself as a Class 4 device, and the switch itself would reserve 30 watts of power for each AP. But if you just went by allocated PoE, we would only reserve 16 watts of power for each AP, nearly doubling the number of APs that you could power for that same power budget. So when looking through our portfolio, you will see we've got everything from little 60-watt switches all the way up to a full kilowatt of power PoE budget for you. So we talked before about the prefix on the models. We talked about the postfix on the models, telling you sort of what's going on. The model series, 1200, 1900, etc., tell you a bit about the feature functionality of the switches themselves. So anything below a 1200 is generally going to be an unmanaged switch. Our 1200 series are our very basic SMB SOHO sort of basic limited managed switches. 1900 gets you up to more of your rack mount, but still limited web-based management. And then when you start getting up into the 1920 series, that's where you start getting into almost full level 2 functionality managed through a web browser. The 1920s and the 1930s can be Nebula managed. Our NSW series are our dedicated Nebula switches. The 2210 series is our full layer 2, offering full web management as well as command line interface for those of you that like to do it old school. And then we go up from there to our layer 3 switches. So lots of different offerings there for you. We have one other switch here we're going to draw out. This is our 1300 series switches. These are some switches that were specifically designed for the surveillance market, but some of the features there are still pretty cool even if you're not doing surveillance. So one of the cool things we do here is we allow you to provide data connectivity and PoE connectivity up to 250 meters. So we'll drop the speed down to 10 megabits instead of 100 meg or a gig. But you'll get a 10 megabit connection up to 250 meters, including PoE. So that's kind of cool. Continuous PoE. If you apply configuration changes or if you need to reboot your switch, we continue to provide PoE to all the connected devices. So once the switch boots back up, your connected device is able to pass traffic again. You don't end up power cycling all your connected devices. Then we've got a cool little mode here which allows us to monitor all the connected devices and let you see what the status of each connected device is. It was specifically designed for cameras, but it still works with access points and other things like that. And as I said, we monitor those devices, so we can determine if these stop responding. You can use either LLDP or pings to monitor those devices. So if they stop responding for a certain period of time, we can go ahead and reboot that device automatically by power cycling it. And we've built in some heavy-duty functionality onto the switch itself to help make it survive a little bit longer out in the field. So when it comes to our surveillance switches, the 1300 series are unmanaged, and the 1350 series are managed through a web interface and CLI. Eventually, the 1350 series will be able to be managed in Nebula. They are not today. And then if you're looking for 802.3 BT, up to 60 watts of power per device, currently the 1350-6HP is our switch that supports that. So if you're buying one of our new Wi-Fi 6 access points, you want to buy at least one of these per each AP to provide that 60 watts of power required. And we will have more switches coming out that support BT. Lastly here, you're probably here because you recently joined our partner program. If not, think about joining. It's at vars.zycel.com. It gets you access to a bunch of webinars, gets you access to priority support from our tech support, and gets you, as long as you qualify for it at silver or gold level, gets you additional automatic discounts for everything you buy at distribution. So that is it today. That concludes today's webinar. I'll stick around for a minute or two. If you have any questions, again, send them in via the Q&A box. Otherwise, guys, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you coming out. Keep an eye on other webinars coming forward. We're going to go over all the new features in Nebula. That's going to be coming up in the near future. We're going to have a dedicated Wi-Fi 6 webinar talking about our new WAC 650S Smart Antenna Wi-Fi 6 4x4 access point. Tri's got some tech seminars coming up this month. So check those out as well. And then as always, if you've got suggestions for webinars, presentations, trainings that you think would be beneficial for you, let us know so we can consider adding those onto the calendar for you. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you do have something you want to send in, my name's Sean. You can email me directly, Sean R. Sean is spelled SHAWNR @Zicel.com. Thanks, guys.